When Paul writes here, rejoicing in hope, we need to understand that what Paul writes here is a very Christian thing. It is a distinctively Christian thing. This is not Paul encouraging us to kind of buy into the power of positive thinking, which you'll actually hear from some pulpits. This is not Paul encouraging us to be more positive than negative in any worldly sense. He's actually encouraging us, this rejoicing in hope, he's encouraging us to take part in something that is a very necessary aspect of the Christian worldview. Let me explain what I mean by that. There are different ways that we use the word hope as human beings, and many of them have nothing to do with what the New Testament is talking about in a text like this. They have nothing to do with the Christian worldview. And some of these things, a lot of these things are innocent in and of themselves, but they have nothing to do with the Christian worldview. People can hope for more money, spouse, better job, better vehicle, a new house, or you can come up with others. Those things are innocent in and of themselves, but they are not part of the Christian worldview. If you believe something to be part of the Christian worldview, and yet it is proven to be false, or it's never granted, it's never fulfilled, then that would actually make Christianity false. No, the Christian worldview is based upon things that are true. Things that are true, not things that may or may not be true, like me getting a new car. The things that make up the Christian worldview are not dependent upon our circumstances. They're not dependent upon our emotions. They're not even dependent upon whether or not people believe them. They are completely dependent upon God and His will, and what He says is true. Period. Full stop. To have a worldview basically means that you look at the world in a particular way. Everybody has a worldview, whether they realize it or not. But there is a huge difference between the Christian worldview and every other worldview, which are worldly. There's a huge difference between the Christian worldview, which focuses on the one true God and His will as revealed in the Scriptures, versus any other worldview that focuses upon man, that focuses upon the will of man, or even focuses upon false gods. So what does it mean to have a worldview? Well, some of the things that are there in a worldview are, how do you interpret reality? How do you look at the world and interpret what is there? What do you think it means to be human? How do you know that what you know is true? How do you learn? How do you know the difference between right and wrong? How do you arrive at purpose and meaning in this life? Those are all things that are there in a worldview. And they are there, of course, in a Christian worldview as well. But when you consider the different ways that the world looks at what makes up a good worldview, and you compare and contrast that to the Bible, the contrast is like night and day. And there is perhaps no word that best points to that stark contrast than the word hope. The word hope. What makes a Christian worldview? What makes the Christian worldview? If you believe the Bible, then you have to admit that it is not what the world thinks, because all that is in the world is passing away, according to 1 John chapter 2 and verse 17. But even as Christians, we must take care to be biblical on this, because you see, the Bible answers the question of what makes up the Christian hope. The Bible answers that question with certain things that, if rightly understood, need to be laid beside other things that the Bible reveals. In other words, they have to be put in their proper place. And if we refuse to do so, we can get in trouble answering this question, even though we may say we're answering it from the Bible. What are you talking about, Jonathan? I'll break it down in simple English for you. There are people who like to cherry pick the Bible. There are people who like to cherry pick the Bible. And that reality is just as much true when they approach the Christian worldview. And here's the reason why this is such a big warning for us. The sinful bent that is within us will always prefer this. If you let sin within you have its way, guess what it would love to do? Cherry pick the Bible. What does it mean to cherry pick the Bible? Well, I just look at those things that I like and I pull them out of the Bible. But then the other things that I don't like, well, I'm just going to ignore them. I'm going to toss them to the side. This is something we all need to understand, even as Christians.